Eric, I think you're on.
Am I on? Okay.
You're live.
The call to order the meeting of the San Ramon Planning Commission for Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. I'd first like to introduce our two recording secretaries to keep track of me tonight, Salmana Shah and Jennifer Chavez. First, I'd like to have our city attorney make an announcement concerning the Brown Act as applied to teleconferencing. Mr. License, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards that are set forth in Governor Gavin Newsom's order number N-25-20, which is available online for anyone that wishes to review it. This order allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference in order to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. And now I would ask that we conduct roll call, and afterward, I'd ask the chair to recognize me again afterward to confirm certain matters for the record. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Alpert?
Here.
Commissioner Frank?
Here.
Commissioner Marks?
Here.
Vice Chair Kuznick?
Here.
And Chair Wallace.
I'm here. So let me recognize Mr. License again. Floor is yours again.
Thank you again. I now would like to verify three things. One, that all commissioners can hear me well. Two, that all commissioners have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call. And three, that each commissioner believes, based on facial or voice recognition, that all persons representing themselves to be commissioners are in fact commissioners. If all three are true, could you please indicate by nodding, waving, or otherwise raising your hand? Thank you. Seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 affirmative responses, I will turn it back over to the chair with the reminder that any votes taken during this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. License. Ms. Shaw, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the
of the
United
United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 is public comment. Ms. Shaw, could you advise the public about what the procedures are for public comment in the COVID-19 age?
If you wish to speak under public comment, you may click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when public comment is being taken. You will be unmuted when it is your turn to make your comment for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. At this time, those who wish to address the Planning Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda will be able to do so. So we received no late communication, and doesn't look like there are any hands up.
Okay, going once, going twice, closed. All right, item number 5. Additions and revisions, we have no items. Item number 6, consent calendar, we have no items. Item number 7, approval of the minutes from the August 18, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, item number 7.1. Does anyone have any comments, changes, corrections, or additions to the minutes as drafted? Seeing all the heads going left and right instead of up and down. Could someone make a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I will move to approve the minutes.
I will Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, I will second the acceptance of the minutes of the August the 18th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the August 18, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Ms. Shaw, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Mover Commissioner Frank.
Aye.
Seconder Commissioner Alpert.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
And Chair Wallace.
Aye.
So item 7.1 passes 5-0.
All right. Item number 8, continued items after closing a public hearing. We have none. Item number 9, continued items open public hearing. We have none tonight. Item 10, new items. Item 10.1 is the Emergency Operations Center addition. We have a staff report by Shanae Sakamoto. Shanae, it's all yours.
Good evening, Chair Wallace and commissioners and the public. I would like to provide a brief summary of the staff report with a PowerPoint presentation and followed by the applicant's presentation. So I would like to share the screen. Which one is that? Jen, help me. How do I share the screen now?
Here, hold on one second. Let me make you co-host here if I can. Christina might have to do this, but Christina, can you make Shanae co-host so he can share the screen? Or if you can request it, Shanae, I can go ahead and approve it. I think there's a button for you to do that.
How do I request that? I'm sorry.
At the bottom of your screen, do you see where it says share screen?
Oh, here it is.
It's green. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Ah, fantastic.
So do you see the presentation now?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good job.
All right, so EOC addition at 2401 Crow Canyon Road and 2 applications, architecture review and development plan amendment applications are before you. The brief background of this project is because the city and the fire district have recently executed a joint use agreement for police and fire services at the city's 2401 Crow Canyon Road facility. And then this facility includes the new emergency operations center. And on July 9th, the Architectural Review Board reviewed the proposed design and it provided comments to the applicant and the staff. And then and recommended the commission to consider the proposed project. And then August 10th, the applicant submitted the revised project plans based on the comments from the Architectural Review Board. And the plans before you are the result of that. And project site location is in general plan, land use classification is office, and the zoning district designation is administrative office, and the proposed use is a governmental office. And then here is a brief site condition. The property is about a 7-acre lot, and then there's an existing 2 buildings of the 65,500 square feet or so. And that is a gross floor area of this permit center building, and this is the police building connected by the lobby here. And then public access will continue to be provided from the west side of the existing building to the lobby to the police or fire district in the future. And EOC, the proposed EOC will be constructed on the east side of the building, and which is currently vacant. And then there are a few landscape plants, trees in there. And the proposed, this project description as follows. And the proposed building is a 2-story building and approximately 9,800 square feet and 32 feet in height. And then on a rooftop, there will be a 6-foot diameter pole mounted communication antenna. The top of the antenna will be approximately 43 feet above grade. And in addition to that, project is proposing to provide a 565 square foot gym for the police department at the south building here. And the EOC building is constructing the 7 parking lots here, and then also a pullover driveway along the creek side. So with that, I would like to make a recommendation for the commission to receive the staff report and the presentation by the applicant, and open the public hearing and take public testimony on the proposed project. Close the public hearing, consider the project and then deliberate, and if appropriate, adopt the resolution number 13-20. And I would like to ask the recording secretary to promote Mr. Kutz. He's the architect and applicant, and then Chief Meyer, he represents.
Both been promoted already, Shinye, so you're
All
good.
right, great. Thank you. Here you go, Jeff. It's all yours.
Great,
Now,
thank you.
I'd like to share the project plan for you. Do you see the project plans now?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you tonight about this project. Shanae, if you could go ahead to the civil drawing, the third sheet, excuse me. I'd like to briefly walk you through the project and explain the design that we're proposing. As Shanae said, the fire chief, Chief Meyer, is here as well and can speak to you about any specifics about the project. You may have questions for him also. So the existing building is currently being used for planning and for police. Our overall project includes renovating the police department and creating new home for fire administration on the north side of the existing building. And then under this application, doing in addition to the existing building to create a new emergency operations center and 911 communications center. And I'll walk you through the plans for that in a moment. In terms of the site development on this drawing, we do have a secure parking with 7 parking spaces on the east side of the building that are intended only for dispatch staff. I should point out that this building is the addition is a secure building only for staff, for fire, for city PD, and for the communication staff. So there is no public in this portion of the building. There are no public that will be coming to the building or to this parking lot. So this is a secure parking lot. We also are creating a pullout off of Creekside Drive for fire apparatus if they are coming to pick up supplies or come to a meeting. So that's what's being modified there off the street on the west side of Creekside Drive. In order to create the parking lot, we are taking out some existing trees and building a retaining wall to create enough site area for the parking. One of the comments from ARB that we were not able to accommodate was a request to modify the parking in order to create a additional planting area where the current accessible parking spaces are located. We looked at several different options to try and rework the parking lot, and we were not able to come up with anything that allowed us to maintain the number of spaces. So that comment we were not able to accommodate. Shanae, if you go ahead to the landscape plan. This project, as I said, does involve removal of some existing trees. And so we're proposing to install several new trees, both on the north side of the parking lot, as well as along Creekside Drive to help screen. And the plant materials were reviewed by ARB. They made some recommendations to us. And so the plant palette that's included in the package that you have in front of you addresses the comments that they had made. So we did take out some of the species that they had concerns about, and our plant palette now is limited to those items that they recommended. In terms of the floor plan itself, you can skip ahead a couple of drawings. On the first floor, the first floor there on the left side of the screen will be primarily the Emergency Operations Center. On the ground floor, this will be the Emergency Operations Center both for the fire district as well as the city and police. And so additionally, there are some breakout rooms that open onto the Emergency Operations Center, and then the server room there that serves that operations center. On the second floor is the 911 communications dispatch facility. Currently, dispatching is being done for the district and for the city police department out of Fire Station 31, excuse me. And this will create a new facility for them that will be, this building is being designed as an essential service facility. So this will be enable communications facility to remain operational in the event of seismic activity or other events. So the dispatch facility with consoles and the large server room that you see there accommodates all of the communications equipment necessary to support the district. So those are the interior functions. And if you go to the elevations, so the building, obviously the existing building has been there a long time, has a very distinct look. And so rather than try and just match the look of the building that was there, we've attempted to develop something that has more contemporary feel to it, but maintains some of the massing elements that exist with the building today. So we've incorporated in terms of the aluminum storefront system, we're incorporating that into the building here. And the building materials are a combination of stucco and horizontal and vertical metal panels. In the rendering on that last sheet, Sinead, you'll be able to see the Emergency Operations Center itself. And then on the upper view in the backside there is the existing building. So we're proposing to paint the existing building to match the colors of the new building and incorporate some screening in areas where necessary. In response to the ARB comments, we have changed the paint scheme on some of the cross bracing on the existing building to a darker color to create a little more of an accent there. And our building incorporates these perforated metal panels that will also be used in select areas on the existing building to tie those together. Some of the other comments that came from ARB were focused around their view of creating more of a welcoming public entry to the building. Again, I want to reinforce that the public is not coming to the building. We have added some signage to the building here to help identify it, but the parking itself is secure, and all of the public access to the overall building will still remain on the west side of the building in the existing parking lot that serves PD and planning today. That's an overview of our design. I'd like to turn it over to Chief Meyer to add anything that he may have.
Thank you, Jeff. Chair Wells, commissioners, good to see you all again. We could be in person. This is so weird, but necessary. So just, the main thing I want to add is it's been a great partnership with the city and for us, an opportunity to have what is very important, an essential services building that can house an emergency operations center and our communication center, which are really the nerve center in any natural or man-made disaster is so important. So I thought Jeff did a good job of kind of laying out how we've gotten here from an architectural standpoint. But from our standpoint, this is very usable. It has a ton of capacity. From the EOC level, you can't really tell the size. It is a very large EOC. So we have the capacity as we grow to have something last generations. And then the communication center itself is the same for us. So I just wanted to emphasize those points about the new building. And then as far as the administrative building, I think it's very responsible from the district and the city's perspective to move forward with the remodel. And we're doing our best to aesthetically, what we feel is aesthetically upgrade the look. And although people won't be going to the communication center because it's a secure location, people will be coming into the offices on the other side. And we just thought, we think this is a great project. I know Jeff has more to tell you, and I'll stop there, but I'm happy to answer any questions or make any other comments as necessary. So thank you.
Yeah, we're again happy to answer any questions you may have about the design. With that, I'll turn it back.
Do we have any questions for either the applicant or staff before we open public comment?
Yes, I have one.
You're up.
Just a clarification question. Both the staff report and the slides that we looked at talk about the 565 square foot gym as a part of the project, but that's not a part of the application tonight. I just want to verify that. That is something that will be coming in the future.
I'd like to respond to that. I believe that is part of the application to be considered, even though there is no specific architectural design for it. But what it does is that it will allow them to use this square footage and also the description of single story addition. And then in the later date, they will be subject to the building permit, and then also the architectural review through the building permit, and then we go through the standard procedure.
Well, I think that may be problematic, Shinye, because section 15303 subsection C limits the square footage to 10,000 feet. When you add in the 565 square feet with what is proposed for the EOC, you come to 10,401 square feet. I don't think there's CEQA authorization using this section of CEQA as is used in the staff report to bring in at this time the gym. And it isn't mentioned, I should say, in the resolution. So I really do wonder how we would justify using that section of the guidelines.
Shinye, can you stop sharing so we can speak?
Stop sharing. Here we go.
Thank you. So one of the things that we should be considering also is that these are diagrammatic. I mean, they are specific in terms of square footage, but a lot of things change between when they get into construction documents. And so that's something that we can look at as the tenant improvements go forward, as well as the development application. There are different ways of looking at exemptions for projects. There's existing facilities exemptions, as well as small construction of new things. What we don't want to do is get into a situation where we are piecemealing a project. And so we are aware of that. But again, I think, when we look at in terms of the actual square footages, when we get into construction documents, we can verify compliance with the standard.
Lauren, I have to say that I just don't agree. You have presented us with diagrams, or I should say plans that we are supposed to rely on. They do not total what the CEQA section allows. And while I'm well aware of how you can scale down a building, we're making our decision tonight, not based on what might happen in the future. And I just don't see how a planning commission can knowingly use a section of CEQA to justify a project when it knows very well that it has exceeded the limit.
Well, what we can do is we could cap the modification at 10,000 square feet, not to exceed for the gymnasium modifications.
Let me ask the city attorney, what do you think, Martin?
Well, I think if there is a way, as Lauren is suggesting, to cap the overall project to not exceed the 10,000 square foot limit, then that's the way that the commission should proceed. Although right now it's escaping me as to how that might be done. So
that doesn't give me a great deal of comfort.
I think it can be simply by a condition of approval that based on the findings that it shall not exceed 10,000 square feet.
Let me ask a question. At some point when they want to build the gym, are they going to come back in front of the planning commission and explain to us how the gym plus the EEOC is still under 10,000 square feet?
Well, the idea is that the approvals include everything. So if they come back, I mean, we have to verify square footages as part of tenant improvements. And so we have the ability to enforce the conditions of approval that are put in place by the Planning Commission to ensure that they meet the standards as approved.
Let me also point out that the title of the resolution on packet page 15 does not mention the police gymnasium or whatever that facility might be called. Neither do, if I recall correctly, any of the references in the resolution.
It's in the actual project plans. And so it wasn't specifically identified because it's a very minor addition.
Well, we're adopting the resolution and the plans. I don't want to hold this project up. I think it's a good project when I look at the EOC. And I really don't have a problem with expanding it or creating a gym for the police department. But I feel like we are being asked to do something that is not quite what CEQA had intended. If Martin tells me that capping it at 10,000 feet, 10,000 square feet for the entire two buildings, not to exceed, then I would go along with it somewhat reluctantly. But I have to say, it's certainly not in the spirit of CEQA to do things like this.
I'd like to ask Mr. Katz, since the EEOC building alone is 9,836 square feet, how he would, at least hypothetically, squeeze the 10,000 square foot into those two buildings. Where are you going to take room out of the EEOC to accommodate the gym?
You only get 300 feet.
Yes. So I'm confident that in looking at both the EOC and the needs of the expansion of the gym, we can work within that 10,000 square foot maximum requirement. The expansion of the gym is to accommodate additional weaponless defense training space that PD needs. We will work with PD to make sure that we're providing them adequate space for them to do that. And we'll work with tightening up space as we can in the EOC, but obviously maintaining the critical spaces that we have there. So if maintaining the 10,000 square feet is a condition of approval of this project, I'm confident that we can achieve that.
Lauren, if we were to put a provision in the conditions of approval that cap the size of both buildings at not to exceed 10,000 square feet, Where would you suggest that it be put?
You can just add it as a special condition of the planning commission, and we can hash out some language to add in.
Okay.
I mean, the concept is pretty basic in terms of what the intent is. So, I mean, that is an option. And in the event that there needs to be some additional discussion on that, or down the line when they do construction documents, if we need to come back, we'll come back.
If I may say something, this is Chief Meyer. Great points, Commissioner Marks. Appreciate that. And I will tell you my understanding, and I was trying to do a little scrambling with Chief Stevens from the police department. I wasn't able to get him on the line, and I never feel comfortable speaking for them. But I do know that part of their defensive tactics are inside and outside. I know that has been a conversation. So I think your points are well made, and we will make sure that we, whatever the commission decides to put language in, I'm sure we can work through that with Chief Stevens, and that partnership we've had. We've been able to find ways to get a lot out of not much. So you have my commitment to that, at least as the fire chief. I just want to let you know that.
I have a couple of other questions if we're ready to pivot a little bit, if that's okay.
Well, I think at this point, questions are okay because we haven't had the public comment.
Okay. Yeah.
Our comments come later.
Yeah. No. So one of my questions, Chief Myers, is on the second floor. It shows a number of rooms for bunks, and then the dispatch center. So I guess there are identified 6 bunk rooms. And so my question is this, do you anticipate those being used all the time, or are those truly for emergency purposes? Because I want to loop this back to how many people work in a dispatch at a time in reference to the 7 spot parking. So that's really where this is going. So if the bunks are all full and dispatch is full and we only have 7 parking places, help me out with that, please.
Absolutely.
Before we get into that, there is common parking for the entire site. So you have 260, 80 spaces on the other side. So
all right, fair enough.
So it's a good question, and it's actually a little known fact that our dispatchers work a 48-96 schedule. So they work 2 days in a row. They actually take rest periods at different times.
Okay.
One of the things we've had by being in a fire station, and we are actually at Fire Station 31 on Danville Boulevard at this time, we've had to have, we have to try our best to make accommodation for gender issues, and we have all kinds, as we know, we want to accommodate. So one of the things we do is we have 4 full-time dispatchers all throughout the day. Sometimes that can obviously surge based on what we've seen, 1 million acres burn. That doesn't happen all the time, but it gives us that option, and it gives us capacity as we move forward. So one of the things that we had done in the past before, I hate to say it like this, but the good old boys times, we'd all what we call hot bunk. So people would just pop in, have to move their stuff. We're trying to be more accommodating to our employees, and right now, don't quote me on this, but we're right around a 60-40 female to male. So it's very important that we provide that. It also does provide the option, if and when we get a disaster where people are working, 5-6 days in a row, and they do have to take rest periods, we have the extra rooms available. So hopefully that answers.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. And I have one more question. And this is both to Mr. Katz and Chief Myers. And this is sort of like deja vu all over again. So I'm looking at this, the statistics about the height of the building, and then this 6-foot diameter roof mounted communications antenna, which will be 43 feet above grade. So what are the odds that our friends in the Thomas Ranch area might not be so happy about this?
No,
I mean, is this something that they'll be able to see from their line of sight?
That's a good question. I think with where we are, I don't think it's going to be in their line of sight based on the trees around, but I'll defer to Jeff Katz. And I would say that what's more in their line of sight is what the commission has approved, but still isn't in their line
Okay.
of sight. But that's in my humble opinion. So,
Okay. Just thought I'd
And-
try to be preemptive.
yeah, absolutely. Good point, though.
Yeah, to clarify, as opposed to the freestanding tower that we had been talking about in the previous project, this antenna is on an 11-foot high mast on the roof of the building. So that the 43 feet is really only 6 feet above the parapet height of the building itself.
Okay.
So it's not that much bigger than the building itself. And with both the trees between Thomas Ranch and this project and the small diameter of the dish itself, it really will not be visible.
Okay. Okay. I just sort of pictured, some sort of SETI, dish up there.
Okay, do any of the other commissioners have questions for either the applicant or the architect or Chief Meyer?
I have a question / comment that might work into the 10,000 square foot dilemma, specific to in the ARB report or recommendations in the site plan section. There had been what I thought was a valid comment about softening the southeast corner of the building, similar to the northeast corner. And the response, I guess, was it couldn't be done for programming reasons or because of the function of the building. And I'm just wondering out loud, if that objective were to be achieved, would that be an area where there might be a potential to save some square footage to keep us under the 10,000? Or is that a no-fly zone when it comes to programming or the function of the building?
I'm trying to understand the question. I don't know, Jeff, if you have a comment, but I'm trying to clarify that again. Can you just repeat that for me? I apologize.
Yeah, so I was sort of directing it towards Mr. Katz as the architect, but of course you can certainly weigh in, Chief, especially on the programming issues. The Architectural Review Board had flagged the southeast corner of the building as being something that they thought should be softened. That would involve recessing, I think, the first floor to some extent. And the response back was that that wasn't practical because, it says in the report, and this is on packet page 45, the building program has changed from the plan that ARB reviewed, and the building had to grow to accommodate required new state-of-the-art communications equipment. So, which I found to be a plausible explanation. I wasn't really going to make a big deal of it. My question is there a potential now to check that box of the ARB concern as a way to allow us to get back some of our square footage? But I don't even know how that calculates. So, and this could be completely spitballing something that's not functional, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Well, Commissioner Frank, real quick, thank you for that question. And Jeff had paused so long that I thought I was supposed to answer. I thought maybe Jeff's screen froze for a minute, so I apologize. Jeff, you better start answering their question.
All right, I'm here, happy to try and answer it. So, Commissioner, we did spend quite a bit of time looking at the programming of the ground floor in particular to see if there were opportunities to reduce things. The Emergency Operations Center is designed for that worst day of the year when you actually have to activate the EOC. And on that day, we need to make sure that we can accommodate all the various agency personnel that need to be there in order to deal with that emergency. And so we've designed a space that can accommodate the tables and chairs and bodies that need to be in there, and the breakout rooms that allow for different groups to be having conversations and trying to coordinate between fire, PD, and city management staff. And so in conversations with the different entities involved in this project, there really didn't seem to be a feasible way to reduce that footprint and still maintain a fully operational facility. And so my response to the comment that when we resubmitted this package wasn't meant to be flippant. It really was just that we had studied the usability and functionality of the space. And I think that ARB's comments, not to speak for them, but part of their comments originated with an understanding that the public would be coming to this building. And so trying to soften that southeast corner as somebody was parking and coming into the building is where the conversation started. I think they did understand at the end of the discussion that that isn't where the public is coming to, but the comment still stood as a valid comment architecturally. Unfortunately, we just really couldn't accommodate it in the function of the building.
Okay, but you're okay with the concept of us just putting a $10,000 cap as a condition, and you think you can work with that?
Well, the chief would love a $10,000 cap, but
did I say dollar? Square foot, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we will work to tighten things up as best we can, and we'll work with Chief Stevens and police, as Chief Meyer said. Some of their training is inside, some of it is outside. The balance of the area that exists, it's an existing patio space that we were expanding out onto, so we'll still be able to utilize that patio space. So I'm confident that if the 10,000 square feet is a condition of approval, this project will have no problem achieving that.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the only thing I'd add to that is we do have the training facility. So there are opportunities to work together to achieve what the police department may need to achieve with that partnership. We do have an inside gym there as well. So we'll have that discussion. If they actually needed that kind of space, we could adjust. And Commissioner Frank, I'd be happy to have you on my negotiation team when I talk to Jeff Katz later about this project. So thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any?
Of course I have. Thank you, Chief or Mr. Katz. Questions regarding the call center part of it, the PSAP part of it. I think, Chief, you said the number of seats that you currently have planned in the call center part of it is how many again?
We have I think 7, Jeff, is that right? 7 consoles. We have a total of 4 dispatchers just for daily purposes minimum. That doesn't count when we're training somebody. We have 5. And that doesn't count the surges that I spoke of.
Sure. And then are you currently handling all of the call types for the Valley, or there's some calls that you currently shoot up to the county or to Martinez, or, you know, in the crux of my question, do you envision at some point taking additional calls down to this PSAP in the future that you would like to take, but you haven't quite absorbed them yet? You know, are there still calls with some type of 911 call that aren't coming here that you kind of wish they would be coming here?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We are always looking to expand because we think the partnership in our Valley makes sense. But for right now, we handle all fire EMS related calls through the Valley, and then specific to police calls just within the city of San Ramon. But we do forecast trying to work with our partners on the border at Danville and some of the unincorporated areas. So capacity, I think, you know, I don't know if what your thought process is, but for us, not only capacity, but the room for growth as well. I mean, we have nothing but calls going up. I've been here for just about 8 years. We were under 10,000, we were 8,000, 9,000 calls, and now we're upwards of 12,000, 13,000 calls in 8 years. And we're not growing like crazy, but we do expect capacity to be a concern.
Okay, so my question is, if, say, for example, those people in some other city that still haven't hired you to handle their calls, say maybe the town of Danville still thinks they want to send their calls to Martinez, or the county finally, say wake up and decide that you'd be a better place to send their calls, do you have enough seats or desks to grow your call center? And there's enough, at least the room's big enough to add the desks and the stations. Obviously you'd have to hire people and then things like that, but you can grow the call center, if you needed to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have the capacity, and it should be noted that capacity for us is generational. We believe for the next 40 plus years, we have the capacity to grow and handle calls. And it should also be noted that we still have Station 31, which will act as a secondary call center PSAP for us. So we have capacity and we have backup, which we think very well can handle. Like I said, I mean, I hate to say it like this, you guys are all going to still be alive, but I'll be dead by the time that
Great.
that's
And
changes.
then, perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was kind of curious about. And then my other question is the parking lot in the back. My assumption is that shift change, there may not be enough parking places. If all those 7 parking places between people and training and supervisors or whatever, that some people may find themselves parking in the front of the building and then having to trudge all the way to the back of the building. Did you ever consider not having a parking lot in the back? And why are we putting a parking lot in the back on Creekside?
Well, I'll let Jeff talk to, the feasibility of it. From our perspective, like I said, we have 4 dispatchers on a daily basis. So it does become somewhat problematic. I think it's not something that takes over our thought process. We want to be in a secure area. So there is the possibility that we have 8 cars on shift change, to your point. So it's an issue, but to get some parking, some ability to get up close, it was important to us. And I'll let Jeff talk about the feasibility as far as the rest goes.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, if we had a larger site area and we can accommodate 8 or 10 parking spaces, we would do that. This was what could be accommodated there. The existing parking on the west side of the building, essentially, if somebody needed to park there, they would walk through the building because it does connect on both the first and second floors. So they wouldn't have to walk around the perimeter of the site in order to get into the building.
Absolutely. And then I guess this might be a question for Shinye. Did our traffic folks look at that street and entering and exiting into the parking lot there and raise any questions about turning in or turning out onto Creekside from a parking lot there? There's not a lot of cars, I realize that, and these people might even come in at off hours, and since it's a 7x24 center, I can't imagine there's a lot of traffic and when these people work. But did they happen to look at the street and the parking and the driveways and all of those kind of things to?
Yes, they reviewed the proposed project, and then they did not provide any concerning comments. So I believe everything should be working.
Great, thank
accordingly.
you. And then one last question: does the call center EOC, does it draw its emergency power from the existing buildings, fire station, or is there going to be new generators powers to support this call center EOC configuration?
There'll be a standalone system and standalone electrical service to support this building. Okay. Again, this building is being designed as an essential service facility, so it will be able to continue to operate independent of the balance of the building.
Great.
And with generator backups as well, to your point.
Great. Okay. Terrific. Thank you. I have no other questions. Thank you so much.
Through the chair, we need to open the public hearing still.
I'm gonna wait and ask if anybody had some last minute questions. Then I'll open the public hearing. Anybody else have any questions of the applicant or the architect? Seeing none, public hearing is now open. Ms. Shaw, could you read the script for how we're going to handle public comment in a remote setting?
So we received no late communication items. For anyone wishing to speak on item 10.1, you may do so now by pressing the raise your hand button on your computer screen or *9 on your telephone. When it's your turn to make your comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak. So it seems like there are no hands raised.
Okay, the silence is deafening. So going once, going twice, public hearing closed. Now, it's time for the commissioners to have comments before we move on to talk about the resolution and conditions of approval. So who wants to go first? Otherwise, I have to pull names.
I'll go first. I'll go
Thank you,
first.
Harry.
I have no concerns with this project. In fact, I think, you know, the comment about making the building warm, inviting, and everything else, I think you guys are making it almost too warm and inviting. You know, I came from a world of call centers for the phone company, and we did everything we possibly could to not invite people to stop at our call center buildings because of exactly the reasons you said. We don't want people stopping by to pay their phone bills at a 911 call center or a 0 call center or a 411 call center. People do, even if we don't. And especially an EOC center, which is by definition someplace you want to be robust and bulletized, and you want people to actually, you know, disappear into the landscape. So, you know, the design of the building I think is nice. I think the signage is actually, I would argue, is almost too much of a neon sign saying "look at me," you know, but it is what it is. But I think, you know, with the exception of dealing with the 10,000 square foot thing, which I have no concerns with whatsoever. The nature of my questions was I have expectations that the call center will grow over time as you absorb more call types from more communities and more cities, because we are efficient, and I know call centers are more efficient the more calls you can handle. You know, staffing for a 4-person call center is pretty inefficient, but if you can get a 10 or 20 or 50 or 100-person call center, it's great, you know, but not that we want 100 911 call center here in San Ramon, because that means you have 100 911 calls. Anyways, so I have no concerns with this whatsoever, and I think it's a good project.
Thank you, Commissioner Alpert. Who next wants to talk? Commissioner Marks.
Yeah, I just simply want to say that other than a concern I had relative to CEQA, I think this is a very well done project. I like the way it's integrated into the existing building. I make no comments about the interior spaces because an EOC is a different kind of critter. And really only people who have worked in an EOC really understand how it functions, not day to day, but in the actual crisis. And if I may say so, I think it's important to have a sign because in a real crisis, you have people coming from out of town to help staff functions, and they may not be familiar with where the building is. And so you don't want them to lose time getting into the EOC if they have to get there. They may have to go around to the front of the building, but at least they'll know where it is. So everything about this project physically, I happen to like. And I think, again, it was well done design.
Thank you, Commissioner Marks. Okay, we can flip a coin between Vice Chair Kuznick and Commissioner Frank, unless they want to volunteer.
No, I'll go because I see Commissioner Frank is still on mute here. So, you know, I think the building is well designed, and I'm actually happy to see that backside of our current 2401 be utilized, because it does seem like it was previously, or you know, has been kind of a big area that was sitting unused, and so this will be a good continuation of us trying to maximize the locations we already possess and so forth. Initially, when I was reading through the documents, I will admit to having a little flashing light go at my head, hoping that we were not within the 100-year floodplain of San Catiano Creek. So you see the things I'm learning on the Planning Commission. And I decided that it was my concept of 100 feet, you know, was much different than where this this building would end up, and that would not be of concern. But I did think about it. So yeah, I don't see a problem with the project. I look forward to seeing how this is integrated. I was, pleasantly surprised at the effort put into designing this to look attractive and interesting, and the materials that go into that from the architectural review board. So it'll be interesting. I'm amused by the perforated metal. So I'll be interested to when that should we apply, approve, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. So thank you for answering all my questions anyways.
Mr.
I
Payne.
don't really have anything to add that my eloquent colleagues have already said, other than to say I also support the project. I do appreciate the response where you could do it to the ARB comments, especially changing the colors up a little bit and then assimilating it with the other buildings. So I appreciate that. But other than that, I'd be getting redundant and just to say I support the project.
Okay, I am also supportive of the project, and I won't spend any time talking about it because all of the commissioners have touched all the squares. I will just say that I thought calling the paint cover for the building Dorian Gray is kind of interesting. Sure, there's a real explanation why, but we'll leave that for another day.
It's a wild idea.
All right, touche.
That never gets old.
All right, so my straw poll says that we have 5 commissioners in favor of the project. So what I'd like to do is to move on and go through, first of all, the resolution and doing it the time-tested way of asking if anybody has any comments on the pages, and there's only 6 on the resolution. So does anybody have any comments on page 1?
Yes.
Okay.
In the title, I would like to add under the words Emergency Operations Center, Police Gym Edition.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on page 1? Okay, let's turn to page 2. Are there any comments on page 2? Okay. I have one. Under subparagraph B, the 4th line down, the middle sentence on that page is one I would propose changing. The current sentence reads, quote, "The project is a small building of no larger than 10,000 square feet," close quote. I would suggest changing that sentence to read, "The project consists of 2 buildings not to exceed 10,000 square feet." Okay, anybody have any other suggestions?
Mhm.
All right, let's turn to page 3 of the resolution. Any comments, changes, or additions? Hearing none, let's turn to page 4. Any comments, questions, or additions to page 4? Hearing none, let's turn to page 5 of the resolution. Any changes, comments, or additions? Okay, hearing none, let's turn to page 6. Any other changes or additions or modifications? Okay, let's go to Exhibit A, the conditions of approval. Any changes, corrections, or additions to page 1 of Exhibit A?
Yes. Again, I'd like to add the words Police Gym Edition underneath the title of the resolution where it says the Emergency Operations Center.
Okay. Any other changes, corrections, or additions? I have one. The last sentence in paragraph 1, I would make an addition that states in substance, other associated improvements as shown on the project plan on a 6.945 acre lot, including a gym, total square footage of the 2 buildings not to exceed 10,000 square feet.
Just to be clear, the gym is not a new building, it is an addition. So we'll clarify that in the language.
Okay, as long as we have the concept that the project we're approving consists of 2 buildings, the combined square footage not to exceed 10,000 square feet. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, page 2 of the conditions of approval. Any changes, corrections, or additions? Hearing none. Let's move on to page 3 of the conditions of approval. Any changes, corrections, or additions? Okay. Page 4 of the conditions of approval. Changes, corrections, or additions to that? Okay, page 5 of the conditions of approval. Do we have any changes, corrections, or additions? Hearing none, turn to page 6. Any changes, corrections, or additions to page 6 of the conditions of approval? Nope. Page 7. Any changes, corrections, or additions to page 7 of the conditions of approval? Okay. Now, at this point, having gone through both the resolution and the changes and the conditions of approval and the resolution, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of resolution number 13-20, resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Ramon approving architectural review and development plan amendment for the Emergency Operations Center EOC edition and Commissioner Marks additions, the gym with the exact wording to follow. 2401 Crow Canyon, APM 20NAN 240-019, as amended tonight on the dais, etc.
Here we have a motion to approve the resolution with conditions of approval. Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
The motion to approve the resolution has been made and second. Could we have a roll call, please, Ms. Shaw?
For Commissioner Alpert,
Aye.
Seconder Vice Chair Kuznick,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
Chair Wallace.
Aye.
Item 10.1 passes modified.
We have one more. We're missing Commissioner Frank.
If anybody cares, mine's aye also.
As amended. Okay. All right. The motion has been passed by a 5-0 vote of the Planning Commission. Okay, let's move on. Item 11, non-public hearing action items. We have none. Item number 12, study session, commissioner liaison reports, and staff reports. Before we talk about all our fun liaison reports, we have on the agenda tonight a staff report by Mr. Barr dealing with beekeeping. Mr. Barr, you have the floor.
Thank you. As you recall, under public comments and also some discussions that we've had with staff, we received a letter from Mr. Mark Armstrong, a member of Mount Diablo Beekeepers Association, asking us to revisit our beekeeping standards. And you might recall, or some of you might recall, back in 2013, we had a series of discussions over amending the code to allow beekeeping, and ultimately it didn't move forward except on the large lots associated where agricultural practices are generally allowed. And so currently, Mr. Armstrong submitted some potential revisions to our zoning ordinance and would like us to consider those, given that things have changed over the years, and there's a general acknowledgement that beekeeping is something that other cities have allowed on smaller scale lots. So what we're asking for tonight is if there is interest in revisiting this topic and creating a ad hoc committee of the Planning Commission to work through the recommended revisions from Mr. Armstrong, as well as do some additional research on adjacent jurisdictions and create a recommendation back to the full commission for consideration of this potential amendments in the next code update. And so again, we don't have a code update planned at this point, but we can spend some time looking at these standards and whether or not it's something we would like to consider. With that, I'm available for questions.
I have a
Comment?
question. I have a question. So I didn't know that there was even allowed on large lots. But is this something like the city could somehow work with, say, Crow Canyon Gardens, and be able to put something like on that kind of a facility, which is sort of a back to nature
Well,
premise?
it comes back down to a question of land use authority and whether individuals have the ability to have beehives on their own properties versus more centralized or even community-based approach.
Okay.
And so, you know, there are a number of different possibilities. And again, we looked at some of them at the last go around, but ultimately didn't decide to amend the code to allow them on smaller lots.
Okay.
Lauren,
Thank
could I ask a question? Could you talk about what it means to form an ad hoc committee? So if we volunteer, what actually we're signing up for? Yeah.
Sure. So what we'd be talking about is we'd like 2 volunteers from the Planning Commission that are interested in this topic, and we'll work with staff to analyze the ordinance and language provided by Mr. Armstrong, in addition to a research that staff will prepare and vet the question of whether or not this is something that's right for the city of San Ramon, or whether our current standards in place is what we should stick with. And again, there's no particular schedule for this, again, because we don't have a code update going, but it's something that we can start to formulate our ideas for when we do have an update.
Okay. Is it typically 1 meeting a month, 2 meetings a month, 1 every 6 months, and just kind of a gauge about what kind of involvement you think you're looking for from us, just to, before we sign up? Is this
my guess is it's 1 or 2 meetings over a couple of months. I mean, first and foremost, we have to kind of flesh out what the concerns are of our community and what we'd want to do, and then it may require that staff do some additional research and come back to that ad hoc committee. But at the end of the process, the ad hoc committee would report out to the full commission, and you know, then we decide whether to move forward with recommendations of the ad hoc committee.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions of Mr. Barr concerning the formation of an ad hoc committee?
I don't have any questions per se, but I'm in light of my shirking my liaison duties, I will step up and volunteer to be one of the 2 people. I think Mr. Armstrong has demonstrated a thoughtful process here, and I think he and his fellow hobbyists deserve some further exploration. So I'm willing to serve, especially understanding that we don't have a strict time frame. Although I guess I should ask parenthetically, how often is there a regular schedule that where there are revisions to the zoning laws, or is that just done ad hoc?
It's done ad hoc. We actually keep a running list of things that we discover as we go, and once we get a critical mass, then we schedule an update. Or oftentimes it might be in response to other policy changes with the general plan or specific plans that we would do an update. So there will be a point when it's time to make some changes.
And through the chair, we do anticipate, as you know, we are starting a housing element update. And so as part of that effort, we will be bringing forward a code amendment, which will be about 18 months to 2 years out. So there's a larger one that will be coming.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 1 volunteer. Do I hear another one?
I always like to volunteer, but I don't want to be the only one. I don't.
You
Chair Wallace, I think you were part of the last task force that looked at this topic, or you were.
Yes, and I thought about that, and except for, I don't remember if Commissioner Marks was on the Planning Commission. He was not. So I am the only one on the commission now that was involved in the 2013 process. And I do not feel I should be on the ad hoc committee because I was probably the most against having any type of beekeeping on lots less than an acre.
Right.
So I think it would be not fair to the person who wants to amend it to have me on the ad hoc committee. So I'd be much happier if it was Commissioner Frank and Commissioner Alpert.
Mm-hmm. And unless Vice Chair Kuznick has a desire, you know, to.
You know, I'm really interested in this topic. So, you know, I'm amenable to it, but I, you know.
Well, I'd be happy to let Commissioner Alpert and Kuznick. I'm kidding. I'll step up. I owe it to the commission.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Alpert and Commissioner Kuznick, do you want to flip a coin?
I feel like we should do, you know.
Oh, rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
you can
Jean.
tell,
Go ahead,
you can
Jean.
tell I was a high school teacher.
Go ahead, Jean. It's all yours, Jean.
It's all mine. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
So the commission will appoint Commissioner Frank and Commissioner Kuznick to form the ad hoc beekeeping committee.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you both for agreeing to do this. Don't forget your protective gear when you do your research.
So, Lauren, is this something that your department, you guys will, and Debbie, you guys will help us initiate? Because
yes,
the formality of it will be
yeah,
a new exercise for me.
These will actually be noticed meetings
Okay.
with an agenda and available for public participation. But we will put together a work plan and a schedule for when we can meet, and we'll reach out to you when we have that together.
Thank you very much.
And so for those of you who've not participated in ad hoc before, when we start moving forward with the housing element and additional code changes, we typically will form another ad hoc committee to discuss those other changes that we're bringing forward to the full commission, just kind of vet them early and get some early feedback. So potentially you could be doing this a little bit longer than just bees if you want to, or we'll look for full disclosure.
This bee committee might last a long time.
Other topics involved.
But the scope of this appointment is bees only right now.
That's right.
Okay, well, thank you both for agreeing to do this. Do we have any liaison reports? Seeing nobody shaking their head up and down.
Well, I know that the traffic advisory committee met, and I was fully participating, engaged in it this time around, which I have to say is really quite interesting because most of it deals with people complaining about speeders in their neighborhood, for which then we send out the radar truck and a police officer, and then everybody behaves themselves and nobody speeds, and then there's, you know, no problem to solve. But I will say that one of the things that did come up, which I found interesting, was there was a gentleman who was very concerned about traffic along Deerwood. And part of my concern with this is that how we've been discussing the Crow Canyon specific plan, and that there are, as traffic is going to be increasing Deerwood, Faria Parkway, a number of blind spots. And so kind of concerned about that area. And the answer, surprisingly, is if you widen the bike path, it narrows the lane, which tends to cause people to slow down. So, you know, parenthetically, in all our efforts to, you know, add lanes and improve roadways, if you really want traffic to behave themselves, you make them smaller, and apparently people drive safer. That there were 14 collisions in the last 5 years in the stretch that this person was referring to. So, and then there was a report from Councilman Perkins about the license plate readers. So that is moving forward and happening in our town. So, so a couple things about just traffic in our area, and we have a very good department that is right on top of it, and I was really quite impressed with them. So that's my report.
Do you have any other reports? This technically is not a report, but I've been advised that the appeal of our decision dealing with the city walk master plan will be heard by our city council next Tuesday night. So if you want to dial in and listen to the proceedings live streaming, that's when it'll be heard. I also was told that the city council had upheld our decision on the Russian School of Mathematics. So I know you're waiting breathlessly for that.
Lauren did a nice job. Lauren, you fielded questions very nicely on that, by the way.
Thank you. So the last item what we have on the agenda tonight is a report on the upcoming calendar by Mr. Barr.
Sure. So on September 15th, we have a couple of items coming before you. We have a development plan amendment for the Bridges Golf Club. It's a deck addition for event space and outdoor dining. And then we also have a concept review for the Primrose Daycare at Bollinger Crossing. And there are questions there regarding non-retail standards as well as just compatibility. So we'll be vetting that project as well. And then in terms of the October calendar isn't quite set yet. We have a few things that are in flux. And so I'll hold off on that one until we know for sure. And we, just so you know, we are also anticipating canceling the November 3rd Planning Commission meeting.
We had not, in our last meeting, it was indicated we were not going to have a meeting on September 15th, but clearly we are. I just wanted to let you know that I got a wonderful postcard from the Superior Court of Contra Costa County advising me that I may be on jury duty on Tuesday, September 15. I have to do dial-a prayer Monday night to find out if they really want me to show up. But I just want to let you know, and particularly I want Vice Chair Kuznick to know that I'm not going to know until Monday night whether I'm going to be here or not. Even if they call me for jury duty, I may or may not be able to make it back for the meeting. You may not believe this, but the last time I was called for jury duty, I actually was on a jury. Even though I told them I was a lawyer, even though I told them I was a trial lawyer, they still let me sit on the jury. So who knows what will happen. But I just want to let you know and give Commissioner Kuznick 2 weeks to find a hammer to signal the end of the meeting.
I feel like I should mute myself before some other language. Yeah.
So if there are no other comments, questions, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.